Cleveland Browns' Toni Grossi came out and said one of the most ridiculous things I've heard in a long time. He came out and said that Dillon Gabriel should be ahead of Shedeur Sanders on the depth chart. Now, before we get into that, Cleveland Browns, it's been a narrative as far as the media is concerned that continues. If it's not Toni Grossi, it's Mary Kay Cabot. If it's not Mary Kay Cabot, it's Jason Lloyd. I don't know if they take turns or what, but we have a narrative that's been spread from the Cleveland Browns media that's been constantly pushed. And like I said, before we get into that, I'm Reese Will, back with another show. Please like and subscribe. Hit that hype button for me. I appreciate it. Now let's get into it.
Among the Cleveland Browns, if the Browns were to win this game at home.
Now, Toni Grossi came out and said, like I said, one of the most ridiculous things I've heard in a long time. He came out and said that Dillon Gabriel should be quarterback 2 for the Cleveland Browns, not Shedeur Sanders. Now, Toni Grossi believes that Dillon Gabriel's better suited than Shedeur Sanders to be the Browns' backup QB if Sanders doesn't win the QB job, the QB1 job. Now, let me know if you agree or disagree, but I'm going to play this clip.
Gabriel's a guy who'll keep quiet. He'll just study. He'll stay up on the game plan. He'll support the starter in any way he can. He'll run the scout team, and if needed, he'll play. I mean, that's what you want out of a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
And Shedeur's just his shadow is just so huge. I really think that's one of the reasons, Jake, that teams shied away from him in the draft. If you didn't like him as a starter, you didn't consider him as a backup. Gabriel's a guy who.
Oh man, Toni. These reporters always trying to figure out ways to sell newspapers, sell, content. They always creating a buzz, man, and trying to get clicks at the expense of the viewer. As a Browns reporter, a beat writer, it has become who gets the best clicks. Mary Kay Cabot got 1 million clicks for saying that Deshaun Watson was ahead of Shedeur. Toni Grossi is basically saying that Shedeur Sanders is too big to be a backup. If Deshaun Watson wins the starting job, it would be hard for Deshaun to play well as a starter. I don't know, man, because I think he's basically saying because Shedeur fans will be all over him and they would want Shedeur to be the guy. But you got to have tough skin. You have to be able to block that stuff out. That's why they didn't bring in Joe Flacco. The Cleveland Browns had lost 45-14, I remember, against the Houston Texans in the AFC Wild Card Championship. And Joe Flacco left the Browns when the season was over and signed a new deal with the Colts. In 2024, Flacco, he wanted to come back. He expressed interest in returning to the Browns. And he became a free agent because the Browns chose to look at other options. Now, I believe they didn't bring him back because they were scared that Watson would feel some kind of way. I'm talking about Joe Flacco after that year that he took us to the playoffs. I believe that's why the Browns didn't bring back Watson. Now, as far as Toni Grossi, his hate toward Shedeur or these just clicks, I don't know. But as a starting QB in the NFL, there's always somebody coming for your job. Just like in YouTube, this YouTube lane, you've been grinding your channel. You figured out your style. Then a smaller creator pops up and you talking about the same topics and the thumbnails look familiar and he's copying some of your style and he's getting better and all that type of stuff. Those are examples. It's always in life. It's going to be somebody coming up. It's going to be somebody as a quarterback. It's going to be somebody, especially in NFL, it's going to be somebody coming up trying to take your job. And you can't be fazed by that as a starting quarterback in the National Football League. And I'm sure Deshaun Watson wouldn't be fazed by that. So I don't know what they're talking about, but it's crazy to even think that type of narrative But this is where we at. They trying to get these clicks. Him and Mary Kay and Jason Lloyd, and also Jake Crowder on ESPN Cleveland talking about, we're hearing all the Watson stuff and where is it coming from? Whether you agree or not, is it coming from somewhere as far as Watson being a starter? Let's take a listen.
If you believe in Shedeur and you think there's a path to him becoming your franchise quarterback, I understand obviously taking him. But if you don't feel that way, and then you do take him still, and now you create this training camp circus where everybody's focused on the backup quarterback, which was the case, as you know, in August last year. And the other part of it that I just don't understand is we're hearing all this Deshaun Watson is going to start buzz, right? Like whether you agree with it or not, it's coming from somewhere. And I just don't understand why you would go through the pomp and circumstance and the distraction of taking Shedeur, and yet clearly you don't think he's the guy, because you would not be thinking about starting Deshaun Watson if you thought Shedeur Sanders had a chance to be the guy. Again, I just don't understand the inconsistency with how they've handled that situation.
Jake Crowder saying we're hearing a lot of stuff about Deshaun Watson starting, and whether you agree or not is coming from somewhere. But a lot of times, like I said, with Mary Kay Cabot, she's just throwing that stuff up, and Todd Monken already debunked that. And as far as them saying that you wouldn't be thinking about starting Deshaun Watson if you thought that Shedeur Sanders had a chance to be the guy, well, we understand that his contract may take some type of precedent on that. You know, they're thinking about their contract and whether anybody will say it or not. And as far as Shedeur, he only had the 7 games, so Todd Monken coming in as a new head coach, he want to see what he got. And how are you going to make a decision one way or another, and you just now become the head coach and you trying to figure out which one of these guys got what it takes to be QB1? Let's look at some of these comments. Do these Browns reporters know anything about football, or they're just trying to run the clicks up with their bogus takes? Yep, there you go. Cleveland media sports are the worst, the most evil, super disgusting people in the sport. In sports, you guys are more pathetic than Philly and Boston fans. I see why the Browns hasn't been winning, because what players want to play there, it's disgusting how you guys treat players no respect. You're right, man. Something is wrong with the sports media in Cleveland, and I see why LeBron left your dumbass market. Wow. Let me know what you guys think about Toni Grossi coming out and saying that Dillon Gabriel should be quarterback 2 if Deshaun Watson beats him out as far as the starting QB in Cleveland, and all these different narratives that the fans do not like you see in the comment section. So let me know what you think. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next video.